I tell you what, Tony, these bands today, they got it too good, you know? Not back in my day, we didn't have embroidered hats showing off all the festivals we were running and such like that. I tell you what, I used to open up my ramen packet and pour the boiling water in it and eat it that way. And you know why I did it? Because it tasted better that way. That's right, damn kids today. Hails, minions and mortals, this is Fang from Lords of the Trident. Now, for the past couple months, we've been discussing the new wave of crowdfunding, and specifically, one of my favorite platforms, Patreon. As I've said before, being in a band nowadays is incredibly financially challenging, and a lot of the old ways of making a band work financially just don't apply anymore. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, I'm just telling the truth. In the last couple of years, I'm sure you've seen posts from certain mid-level bands who shall not be named that find themselves in such financial distress that they're threatening to call it quits unless fans pitch in to their crowdfunding campaigns. Now, these posts have set off a firestorm of ignorant and in some cases downright worrying comments from the public at large. Don't believe me? Well, then you've never seen a comment section on literally any video on the internet ever. I mean, look down there. It's just, look at that. Why don't they just get a job? I'm not here to support your hobby. I wish somebody was paying me to do nothing. This video should hopefully act as a rebuttal to those comments, as well as ammo for any of you who run into these type of naysayers in real life. First and foremost, if you're not familiar with Patreon and how it works, go check out my previous video on Patreon for bands. I'll sit here and work on my cross-stitch while you finish. Rip them all down. Hey, I ain't supporting your hobby. Why don't you just go get a day job or something? First, let's debunk this laughable question. There are insanely few jobs that will hire you for 2 months, give you 3 months to go tour, hire you again for 3 months, and then give you a month and a half to go tour and rinse and repeat. You will be fired faster than you can say, would you like fries with that? And none of these jobs pay anywhere close to the median US income of about 50 grand a year. For these mid-level touring bands, this is their job. Many of them are signed to a label that has a requirement for them to tour X amount per year. If they give this up to go seek a regular job, they'll lose their label support and their chance of making it. In addition to this requirement, the opening slot for a 2 to 3 month tour with a major headliner usually comes with a large price tag attached. Some bands will pay up to $10,000 to be on certain tours. I don't know about you, but if you're starting your tour with a negative $10,000 balance, it's going to be pretty darn hard for a 5-piece band to make anywhere close to minimum wage. But wait, Fang did the math. Let's assume that all of your band members want to make minimum wage, and let's assume it's roughly equivalent to a 40-hour work week. At the time of recording this video, the minimum wage in the US is a laughably tiny $7.25 an hour, which equates to about $290 per week. Multiply that by 5 members of your band, and you've got $1,450 per week. Assuming that you play a show every single night on tour, that means that you have to pull in $207 every night in order to make minimum wage. Seems doable, right? Now take into account your manager's cut, which is 10% of everything, the label's cut, which could be 20 to 50% of everything, including merch, and the fact that you're already $10,000 in debt. Without even factoring in the $10,000 debt, you're closer to about $500 every single night. According to many close friends who are in touring bands that have opened for major acts, the approximate amount of money they'll get paid for their performance every night is about $100. The lion's share of the profits go to the major act and to the labels of the major act and also the touring act. Considering this, it's no wonder that bands go into debt while touring. So what? Just go play smaller tours where you headline. Yeah, that's all fine and good if you're not signed to a label. There are some major labels out there, who shall remain nameless, that require bands to go on at least 4 supporting tours with a different major act before they are allowed to do their own headlining tour, meaning their hands are tied. When the label tells them to go on tour, they go on tour, but on the label's terms, not theirs. And assuming these bands do set up their own headlining tours, how do you expect them to get to the level of fame where making a living off of their music is possible for 5 people? I know so many bands who have been setting up their own headlining tours for years, but never got the publicity boost by playing a major festival or being asked to open a major band's tour. People who spout this viewpoint are the same people that complain about, oh, there's never any new bands coming out on tour, and why are all the bands that are on tour the same ones that I saw in the 80s and the 90s?
Hey look, I already supported you by buying your CD, okay?
If you buy CDs or shirts or merch at shows, thank you. You are the true heroes of the live music scene. And the person who said this is technically correct. Buying a CD does support the band, but bands are not going to be able to make a living on CD sales alone. Take a look at this graph of CD sales over the last 20 or so years, and you'll see why. If you were a band touring in the year 2000, well, yeah, CD sales might have actually been able to financially support a band of 5 people. That is not taking into account label cuts, management cuts, etc. But in 2019, it's just not the case. CD sales have dropped more than 66%, while the price of an album has remained stagnant, or in some cases even decreased. The album you bought in 1994 for $15 should now cost $24.44 due to a 62.9% cumulative rate of inflation. But it doesn't. It still costs $15, and you've lost 66% of the income you used to have. If you were in a job where you lost 2/3 of your income over the past 15 years of working there, and your company didn't increase your wages for inflation, you'd be well below the poverty line too. So yes, you bought the CD, and that is awesome, but 66% of your friends didn't, and that's real money that is drained out of the industry. Look, CD sales are not coming back, and bands need to find a way to make up the difference. For many of them, the answer is direct fan funding, namely Patreon.
Hey look, I ain't paying you to sit in your butt and do nothing. You need to make more music.
A quick review of just about any band's Patreon page out there will show you that your money is not going to nothing. People who pledge get prizes like merch, access, and sometimes even additional music in return for their support. It's not begging, it's not panhandling, it's people getting actual prizes in return for the money that they're pledging, just like a fan club. And look, just make more music is not the answer. First off, would you want a band to release a crappy, hastily thrown together album every couple months just so they could pay their bills? And what about the costs of actually making that album, the recording, the mixing, the mastering, the production? Finally, take a look at my last comment on the state of CD sales. A lot of bands need to tour in order to promote their material and gain new fans. If they're dropping an album every couple months, when do they tour?
If you can't make this work, you should just go and find a new job, okay?
Again, this is coming from the perspective that a reasonable person could, with the same set of circumstances, make touring in today's industry work. I mean, if bands with the collective IQ of a hard-boiled egg could make touring work in the 80s and 90s, why doesn't it work today? Well, because, quite simply put, the playing field has changed, even disappeared, but the referees are still using the old rulebook. If working bands today took the stance of, I need to quit and find a different job, there would be 90% less music out there for everybody to enjoy. Any scene that you're into would instantly turn into a ghost town. Is that what you really want? There are many, many bands out there that are struggling financially, even well-known bands, but you never hear about it because, let's face it, saying that you're poor and asking for money is pretty much the furthest thing from the manufactured superstar image that a lot of bands want to push. So look, if anybody gives you grief about your band's Kickstarter or Patreon campaign, just send them this video and your old pal Fang will give them some much-needed knowledge, and who knows? Maybe they'll come around and they'll donate to some fantastic band's absolutely amazing Patreon campaign that literally everyone should be on. As always, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time.